RPGaDay 2026, day 7. So we'll wrap up a little bit with these 6 factions that have been created. A couple of things off the bat. There were a couple of factions that I didn't roll for where I've been where I've been using the level 10 dungeon for the faction leaders, and it wasn't until the second faction that I started using the level 9 tables for some powerful lieutenants. And there was one where I actually forgot to do it later. But so for the first one, going back and redoing it a little bit here, or rolling on these tables, I got a 28, well, that would be a 10. So for the Monster Manual 2, that would give us potentially, well, that's the Movanic Diva, which is a good creature, and the faction leader of the first faction is a vampire, so that wouldn't fit too well. On the Fiend Folio, 28 is going to give us a Storm Giant, so that's a good lieutenant, Storm Giant. And then in the Dungeon Master's Guide, it might be the same thing, because a lot of times it is. Nope. 28, there is a Hydra with 17 to 20 heads. So we'll roll a d4 to determine the number of heads and just add 16. So it's 16 plus 1, so 17 heads. And the other faction that I hadn't considered for lieutenants, well, I did, but then I forgot to mention it on the recording, was the faction led by the lesser god of the bugbears, and that lieutenant is a red dragon. So with that straightened out and remembered, the other thing we need to see is what kind of lair they have within. We know the location, the general type of terrain they're operating out of, but what kind of lair do they have? So I went back to the Dungeon Master's Guide and looked at the various the table for rolling up to see if there were any inhabitants of a particular hex that you encountered, and looked at the various types of potential lairs. 2 of the potential types of lairs, the single dwelling and the thorp, have too small a footprint for the number of creatures that would be in some of these factions. So that left hamlet, village, town, city, and castle, as well as various type of ruins. And taking just that portion of the D100 table, because you only got one of those for the first 16 results out of 100, and taking away the thorp and the single dwelling and boiling those down to get basically the same chance, it actually worked out to 100 potential results, weighing each result as they sat on that table, instead of it would have been rolling twice, where you'd roll 100% if it was at 16 or under, then you'd roll potentially again on a different table if it was ruins. But by weighting everything the way it would be weighted, ended up with 100 potential results, with equal results for 20 for hamlet, village, or castle, with half that for town and city, and with either 6, 6, 5, or 3 for a ruined village, a ruined city, a ruined shrine, or a ruined tomb. So I'm going to roll on that table now for each of the factions. For the vampire faction, I get an 82, which is going to put us in castle. So a castle for the vampire. And then for the second one, for the Death Slod is the leader, I get a 74, which is going to be a city. The Elder Titan is going to be in a hamlet, so kind of off out, away from most settled areas. For the one for the lesser god of the bugbears, I get a 71, which is also going to be a city. No, I'm sorry, that's a castle. And for the Iron Golem, I got a 84, which is going to be a ruined village. And then finally, for the Beholder, I got a 92, which will be a ruined city. So that will be their layers. So another thing I want to do is to kind of figure out how these factions interact and work together, is to get a feel on something for about the region they're in, because obviously they're close enough to interact if we're going to have these factions together. And again, going back to the cards from the game Midnight Muscadines, there's a section on the cards called Theme. And so I think I'll draw at least one card, and maybe more than one, to look at the theme and see if there's a way to use that to kind of piece together what's going on in this region, what it's about, to help further develop how these factions might interact and what their goals are. And so I looked, when I was looking at the cards, some of them seemed to be particular to the game itself, so I took a lot of those out and just got some that were more generic themes and have shuffled them together. And so we'll draw this one. The theme is Starfall Recovery. Let's draw a couple more and just take a look at them. New Folk Emerge and Return of Shadows. So that, to me, kind of tells a story in itself. You've got a Starfall, and you've got a new folk emerging that could certainly be related to a Starfall, and a Return of Shadows could also be related to a Starfall. And that could relate in different orders. It could be that there was Return of Shadows that caused the Starfall, and then a new folk emerged. It could be that there was a return of the new folk emerging, and that spawned the Return of Shadows, which in turn triggered the Starfall. Or there could have been a Starfall, and the Starfall is the origin of both the new folk emerging and the Return of Shadows. So I think those are three good themes to put into play. So I'll have to take a look at all this information I put together, and that will be the next part of the world building exercise, is tying it all together and seeing the intricacies of how this region is operating and how things could interact, and getting a better feel for the goals and the actions of the factions themselves. So thank you for listening. Hope you are enjoying RPGaDay 2026 here in August. And again, I encourage you just to go out on social media and look for more content on this subject of people celebrating RPGs and various ways to play them and enjoy them. So thanks for listening.